Well, good evening, everyone. We're going to get started. Welcome to our workshop with Dr. Roetzer. Very pleased to have all of you here. We're going to get started here in a moment. We want to thank our sponsors, Zest Dental and Hariri Financial, for being here, and I'd like to welcome them to the front to say a few words.
Thank you, Jim. I don't have anything prepared. I just want to say thank you all for having me. It's great to attend these kind of events where we have an expert speaker talking about real dentistry and using products in amazing ways for, all of us who are sometimes in that patient chair. So, my name is Nick Orales. I'm from Zest Dental Solutions, like you mentioned. Stuff that gets me up in the morning is developing great dental materials, speaking with clinicians like yourselves. So, I'll be here to help in any way I can. And you're going to see one of the best to ever do it, Dr. Roetzer. Use some Bulk Easy Plus. Cool. Thank you.
Very good evening. It's wonderful to see our friends and our clients in this room. My name is Bardia Hariri. I'm here with my colleague Jessica Link. I'm the owner and founder of Hariri Financial. We are in the business over the past 10 years, specialized in working with dental offices only. So if you have a disability insurance, long-term care insurance, life insurance, 401k, deferred compensation, and if you're not getting the resources that you like, the services that you like, or you're wondering, is there anything better out there? We are independent fiduciary services. We are independent brokers. We represent over 130 financial institutions and insurance companies. So you can reach out to us. There is a complimentary consultation about your estate plan, about your tax reduction plans, about your overall asset protection. We will be more than happy to be a resource for you.
In addition, we have a little card here that we're going to pass around if you'd like to fill out your information for that complimentary appointment. We're going to have a raffle. At the end of the evening, we'll draw a name, and we will be offering your office a complimentary lunch for your entire office.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Just want to draw your attention to a few things here that Dr. Roetzer has really gone all out for us tonight. He has a white paper for you that he's written just for us. He also has given you a 5-page article to read and enjoy as well. And then finally, well actually not finally, but he's given you a list of suppliers, manufacturers, and special deals and discounts to take advantage of for this evening. And then, in addition to all that, he has 6 prizes he's donated to us at the end of the night. So don't leave. Stay till the end. So with that, it's our pleasure and my pleasure to introduce Patrick Roetzer, DDS, FACD, FICD. He graduated from Marquette University School of Dentistry in 1974. Following general practice residency at VA Medical Center Martinez, he founded the Carquinez Dental Group. His North Bay Dental Education Center in Benicia provided lectures and hands-on training for local dentists. Dr. Roetzer holds patents on several systems for restorative dentistry and continues to serve as a consultant to many dental manufacturing companies. He's lectured nationally, internationally on restorative dentistry. After selling his practice in 2009, he served as Clinical Affairs Director for Danville Materials. Dr. Roetzer served as Director of Operative Dentistry at the University of Pacific for 5 years. He recently retired as an associate professor with the AEGD program at UOP in Union City. Dr. Roetzer is a member of CDA, ADA, fellow in both American and International College of Dentistry, and a member of the Pierre Farchard Society. Please welcome Dr. Roetzer.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So we're going to talk about the evolution of composites. Before I go in that direction, I want to give a little shout out to Nick Arelis, who I've known since he got out of high school. He's actually the director of new product technology. So I'm going to show you a product that I believe in, as well as a lot of people believe in, that makes life a lot easier. You're going to see all photography done by my residents. That's important to know, or by dental students, and I'll call it out wherever it was. The bottom line is that Nick has taken a product that was already great, and as soon as the patent from 3M ran, then he agglomerated zirconia. Big word. All it means is he figured out how to do controlled simultaneous assembly of these zirconia molecules to make an 80 nanometer spherical molecule. We'll go into that. The reason I like to say that is 3M held the market for 20 years, and they are a big presence in the room. So nobody wanted to try and step around their patent, but it's gone. So now a lot of people are doing what Nick did. He did it in a unique way, and we've had just a lot of fun with this product. So this is where I ended here in June. Yesterday I turned 77, time to retire and do this kind of stuff. This was a fantastic clinic to work in because we didn't have to stay with the formulary. I could bring in any product I want as long as it didn't kill the lab rats, and we would have the residents, the 6 residents from all over the United States. We could see how well that product performs just by putting it in their hands, because they're zealots, but they're also very careful. They've made a few mistakes in dental school. So this is me. I'm not going to go over all this other than to say that I think the most fun part of that CV, or whatever you want to call it, there is that poison center call. I took all the calls at Danville where our materials were misappropriated or put in the areas where they shouldn't be, like eyes and down throats. So I learned a lot about our colleagues, and I was able to avert several very serious issues by being in that position. And then working with Ray Bertolotti, I think a lot of you know who Ray is. He's an interesting character, so I ended up being kind of his whisperer for people, because he could be just a little bit on the sharp edge. Should I say it that way? So tonight's agenda, what takes us so long to fill and finish class 1s and 2s? This product that we're going to show you, you should be able to do it in less time than you did with amalgam and have a really good result. Do we have evidence that supports utilizing bulk fill materials? Absolutely we do. 3M has done a ton of it for us through the University of Minnesota. And then processes like BioClear, is it rooted in good science? Absolutely. I'm wearing a crown on number 14 that was supposed to be a crown, according to the prosthodontist that replaced me in my old practice. And I said, I'm going to go up to Tacoma and I'm going to have David Clark put one of his all-enveloping compression dome BioClear wraparound whatever on that tooth, and it's been wonderful. I got to tell you that if you haven't taken BioClear training, take it. It's an easy process. You just got to think outside the box. So is GB Black rolling over in his grave, or is he screaming, get with it? I was only talking about amalgam and gold preps. We have so much controversy about that. Stay for the door prizes. I'll tell you, we got some very valuable prizes in there. Just the post system alone is over $400 retail. The reason I like to show this is if you do everything right and think it out, I don't care what you use, it'll work. This was a guard dog owned by the chief of police in my little town. 79, he asked me if I would come and fix his broken off cuspid. I didn't know what a broken off cuspid on a Dober person pinch it was. See, I'm woke. Did you get that one? Dober person pinch it. Come on, give me a laugh on that one. So when I got in to see this guy, I realized, that's the finished case. But how did we get there? What are we going to do here when we took the x-ray? This was done in the vet's office, of course, 37 millimeter root. And you know our files are what, 25 millimeters max. So we were lucky, but we made a one-piece post and crown, 25 millimeter post, and we cemented it with Duralon. It lasted 8 years of activity. He was a Bay Area famous guard dog, police dog. So this is what we were looking at. How do you even fill that? That's a big ovoid canal. We now have post materials. The post system that we're giving away tonight will address that. Of course, we didn't have it then, so we had to make a metal post and core, or a crown, and then insert it after we did our 2 warm glass slabs with bundles of gutta percha, did a chloropercha technique, put it in there, watched him for 2 weeks. He was fine, so then we went in there and bored it out, and what we ended up making was this pattern. That's just cocktail sticks and a little bit of, I forget what resin was, probably Duralay. We didn't get it locked in. We created a 3 millimeter ferrule. We did this, by the way, with an old belt-driven handpiece because we're in his office. And then we made a tray and we pulled that pattern just like that. You can see how big that post is. And the fact that we got a really good impression of that ferrule, well, you can do just about any kind of glue in there. Elmer's glue will work with that. We took an opposing impression, can't bite me now, and then we cemented it, 25 millimeter post, generous 3 millimeter ferrule. What's my point? If you do everything by the book, it's going to work. And then thinking outside the box helps a lot. So this is the system that we'll be raffling off tonight. This is my patented system. Ultradent supported me in this. My motivation was to create a system that you could not screw up, and you could go into the tiniest canals and reinforce them with XR fiber, quartz fiber. Very, very strong material. So they financed it. We produced this. World's smallest post is that 0. The A is an accessory post. So that dog with that big ovoid canal, we would just put them down in there until we had a huge buildup with those accessory posts with a big main post at number 4, and we'd be able to do it direct now. So we had to verify before we could put this in the school that we are actually doing what we think we're doing. Out of the 13 products we tested, we noticed that 3 were superior in diametric tensile strength. What that means is that that post is not going to separate under a load. The fibers aren't going to come unglued from the epoxy. And we did it in a very unique way, and then we published. So I felt pretty good about that, because that post now has to survive a lot of hammering. That's what we do to our restorations. But back to 1971, when I was a freshman, if someone had told me that we could do the stuff that we're going to talk about tonight, I wouldn't even know how to appreciate it, because I was trained with silicates. And I'm sure there's a few people in the room that use silicates. You don't have to raise your hand. But you'll notice that through dentistry, nothing ever changes easily. We actually had the amalgam wars. If you look at it historically, you see they actually shot at each other. And I think the main contradiction to conventional wisdom was that there was mercury and that silver filling. And people got pretty worked up about it. Well, we've seen the same thing with TMD therapy, with implant therapy, with all the different major changes in the way we practice. You get some very spirited discussions. This is a friend of mine, Richard Young. He's a senior mentor for BioClear. What he's showing here is how to change the paradigm. So think about the caries on that tooth, on that molar. He's doing what he knows to get a good contact and eliminate the decay, as well as get a really good wrap of enamel versus dentin. So he changes his prep. There's a typical BioClear prep, pre-wedges, anatomic BioClear matrix, manage the neighboring contact. If it's a ball bearing type contact, it's going to flatten it. I do the same thing. Low profile wedge and then ratchet that matrix over and expand it and confirm your contact. So here he is just before he's ready to prep. Then he preps, does his rough prep, and that's a best disclosing solution ever invented. It will show cracks and biofilm like nothing else I've ever used. So if you use a brush on that, the brush will not take all the biofilm off. It just doesn't do it. That's why in BioClear they use a blaster, and it's aluminum trihydroxide. You can do the same thing, and I'll show it with 50 micron aluminum oxide, and then it will pre-etch as well as take the biofilm off. If you don't get biofilm off, we know that the bond is compromised. It's one of the reasons that we get delamination of material. So he's going to take that off with that blaster, and that's what he ends up with. Now, when I was a REB examiner, we would have failed that person because they're leaving demineralization that goes into the dentin. That's considered a no-no by REB standards, and it should be. It's decay. It's going to go farther. So he's got to get rid of that. Now he has what we call a generous radius bevel, buccal and lingual, and occlusal. So he has turned what we call composite under tension to composite under compression. The University of Minnesota published on this. They did a fantastic job showing the difference between compression and tension with composites. You're really protecting that tooth. This tooth on me was cracked, and it was cracked in several places. And the way they prepared that tooth and laid the material into the 3M composite, I haven't had a problem with it. Now, when he puts his matrix in there, these matrices are meant to form a very elegant shaped contact. And then you heat the composite, both the flowable and the paste, and inject it and let it climb. So you do the flowable first, and that's kind of a vehicle to break the surface tension. So when the paste, the heated paste goes in there, it just follows that, and it comes all the way around so that once you spin that matrix out, you start to see this. So this is not like flash. This is a true radius beveled material. And if you look at what they've done there, typically in a GV black prep, you'd get 30% enamel, 70% dentin. With this, it's the reverse. It's 70% enamel, 30% dentin, and the C factor, which is the configuration factor that we worry about where things are going to pull away from walls or pulp floor, that's got the C factor of a class 3 restoration, which is never a problem. So here he is, and there's his x-ray, and mine looks identical to that one, my number 14. And look at the contact on there. There's not going to be any lateral packing. Food's not going to get in there. And yet it's a very comfortable contact to snap. So this is where we started. I mean, this is really where I was back in the 70s with silicates, and then I forget what the name of the resin was. We used to mix it up like soup and hope that we could pour it in there. It was awful material. So as we're moving ahead now, we got Nick Arelis from Danville, who brought agglomerated zirconia into their bulk fill. Makes a big difference. We have BioClear. We're looking more at monoblock restorations. The chameleon properties of all of our materials are far superior thanks to this agglomerated zirconia, and they're all using it now. You get high strength dual core materials. We've used both Anchor by Apex Dental, and we've used also Rock Core by Zest at the school. Both are really high quality materials. We've played with the fiber reinforced composite. It didn't really work for us in the research, and we didn't see any advantage over just regular agglomerated zirconia material. The dual cured flowable composites are making a very strong entry into dentistry because we can do things with them we couldn't do with pastes. And then the heat and light cured composite like Lava Ultimate. We actually built a machine at Visco They built it for Byung because it was his absolute dream, and nobody bought it. But we could produce Lava Ultimate quality crowns right on your chair side with high pressure nitrogen heat and light. That was a true build it and they won't come. So we've had bulk fill for a long time. We've had glass ionomers, and they've worked as a dent replacement for decades. You get an ionic bond, but it's a strong bond. When they talk about 3 megapascals, that doesn't relate to what we're looking at with shear bond testing with Denton, for instance. So the coefficient of thermal expansion, it matches Denton. It's very good for a base. And McLean in the UK always described the sandwich technique in 1985. And everybody used the sandwich, either closed or open, covered or not, for deep boxes, for margin elevation, that sort of thing. Problem is it's not aesthetic. You can't really polish it, and you can cover with composite for strength, but it's still not what we needed. So if you add some resin to it for better properties, it becomes bondable and it does a fluoride release. And I'll get to that a little bit later. But anyway, these traditional placements, what we're going to do today is cold pack 2 millimeter increments. That's pretty much still the standard in the industry. And if you talk to your colleagues, you'll find that most people are still packing 2 millimeter increments. No difference in horizontal and diagonal, so don't waste your time doing this thing, pushing and pushing. That's been measured, doesn't make any difference. You're going to get knit lines, what are called knit lines, no matter what you do, but it doesn't affect the strength that much. So you can create voids with the incremental, there's no question about it. Some porosity, some knit lines, you aren't going to see that unless you're on real high magnification and marginal gaps, assuming that you're not using a flowable first. If you use a flowable and you coat every line angle, pulpal floor, you're not going to get the kind of problem that we're talking about here. Bulk fill is now possible up to 4 to 5 millimeters with proper curing. Keep in mind that there is an ANSI ADA standard of, it's called 4049, 80% of your top layer and your bottom layer, the bottom layer has to be within 80% of the hardness. There's a bunch of different ways that they measure that. The bottom line is that if it doesn't get there, there's something wrong with the composite or with the light or both. LED units have improved our workflow, there's no question about that, but you still need to check the power density, especially in the quartz tungsten halogen and the LED lights. And then forget about the pack lights, the lasers like Monet, they just didn't turn out to be the right thing. And that's according to Richard Price at Dalhousie University. Richard is one of the authorities worldwide on light curing apparati, if you will. Okay, so altered composition and translucency will allow an increased depth of cure. We know that. And that was one of the reasons to put in the agglomerated zirconia. You get less polymerization shrinkage and shrinkage stress. You put in some elastic fillers, more different photoinitiators, newer types of monomers. This all minimizes shrinkage. So since 2001, we have evidence that bulk fill creates no more cuspal deflection than incremental placement, which is kind of flies in the face of most people's thoughts. Main issue with bulk fills is depth of cure. That's the problem. Lateral proximal wall curing will help with this issue, but again, if you can turn that into the configuration factor, the C factor of a class 3, you don't have to worry about that. But always, if you're using this type of a technique, occlusal, buccal, lingual curing, or you won't get what you want. So what about the paste versus flowable bulk fills? Paste consistency, either cold or heated. Heated flows much better than cold. We know that. That's why if you take a BioClear course, you're going to walk out of there with a heater in your hand when you see what it does. The claims that that marginal adaptation improves with heat, I think, are true. There's no question about that. The chemistries are enhanced to minimize polymer stress. Typically, you're going to get 4 to 5 millimeters depth of cure with any of the bulk fills. That's a safe thing. And then here's your ANSI ADA Spec 449. That bottom layer's got to be 80% of the top layer. in hardness. They use Knoop units for that, and they do a micro indentation test. That's the real sophisticated one. You can do a scrape test. That's 4049 was based on a scrape test, or you can do the Roetzer-MacGyver test, and I'll show you how to do that. It's pretty simple. And then typically light cure the paste, OBL. Sorry about that. Flowable since the early 80s. You probably used a material called paint-on resin. It was the first one to come out, first flowable. We used to use it in the process office I worked in to glue in the sections, the 3 sections, the anterior and the 2 posteriors, so that they wouldn't move. Low viscosity allows small needle for preventive resins. So then we get smart dent and replacement by Dentsply. First bulk fill flowable, strictly light cured, and it worked pretty well, but you could not use it as a top layer. Today, I mean, we got a ton of them that we can talk about. We're going to focus on Regen Bioactive because that's one of John Kanka and Scott Lamoran's product. 2 very bright people, just like Nick sitting there. He's trying to eat when I'm embarrassing him. The fact is, this is, we believe, an answer to the getting rid of the GI in our practice. Because if you want to have something like a bioglass that actually will exchange ions, this is the step in the right direction. And then Bulk Easy Plus is the new material that Nick engineered so that we could get the agglomerated zirconia into that product. So you got a bunch of them to look at. Just keep in mind that all of these products, if they're allowed to go auto cure, because there are 2 cures. There's auto cure or catalytic, and then there's the camphorylquinone, usually. It's common light activated. So what you want to do is let that auto cure, regardless of which one you're using, let the auto cure go first, because that's controlled shrinkage. And then you can photo initiate it after you shape it. So dual cure flowables has unlimited depth of cure, and they're very dentin friendly. The viscosity, it adapts to internal angles. It's got a low polymerization stress when the catalytic reaction is allowed to complete. So clinicians either cap it with a universal, or they allow the flowable to be the cap. Now with what Nick has done with that material, with Bulk Easy, when it became Bulk Easy Plus, you can trust that. And I'll show you Jack Farrakane and Ollie Sauter's information from Oregon Health Science and also the University of Washington. They both have vetted that out very well, whether or not you can use that as your top layer, because that's where your time goes. This is a letter from Gordon Christensen to me when I sent him my first invention, the Raptor burrs, and he's commenting that he'd like to see everything monoblocked and then carved, because he thinks that these knit lines, that we didn't know about knit lines then, we just called them, as he would say, desegregation of the layers can happen if you use incremental layers and you don't do it as a monoblock. So the idea is just allow the material to be about 10% above the grade and then sculpt it and avoid soft sculpting. It's a great time saver. You'll see it when you do your restoration tonight. So this is the machine we talked about. We had great hopes for this thing. It started off as a sterilizer for hand pieces, and then we morphed it into that. A friend of mine that had a company that did hand pieces. So he's an aeronautical engineer and brilliant guy, and we figured out how to do it, and it was truly a build it and they won't come. I don't think they sold more than 10 of these because nobody wanted to do lab work. It was actually much simpler than if you had done like a milled crown. We were faster, and we produced a lot of ultimate quality material, but I digress. So Bulk Easy, here's how it started. This is Sean Chen. He's a really great chemist. What we're looking at is this. We want to be able, that's not showing up, we want the occlusal to do drawdown. As you get the polymerization shrinkage, remember, it's not shrinking toward the light. That was a crazy notion. I don't know who started that, but it's a volumetric shrinkage. If you've got 17 megapascals of attraction on those walls and the floor, it's not going to shrink away from that as long as it can pull from the occlusal. We actually measured that at Visco. You can see it when it polymerizes. So the bottom line is that that's why we don't get sensitivity with these materials when used as a base layer. So it harkens to the days of Bisfill 2B at Bisco, which was BIS stands for Byung-sa Bisco, and B stands for Bertolotti. They were working in conjunction at that time. The micro leakage study on this stuff was great. It wasn't a coincidence that Bisfill 2B didn't suffer the marginal gaps. And we still have people that buy that product from Bisco and use it and put a top cap on it. It was a great material, but it was a little bit of a pain to use. So this is what we're talking about when we talk about having margins sealed. If you look at that right or the left, your gap there, that's a problem. And if you ever wonder why they're replacing composites in 3 to 5 years with Delta, at least they used to when I was practicing, they still replace them in 3 to 5 years, that tells you something, because alloys went a lot longer than that. And it's micro leakage, there's no question about that. This goes way beyond that white line thing that John Kanka used to talk about. And even if you did good marginal adaptation, put it under a load and frequently those margins will open up. So why am I telling you that? Because if you allow these materials to set, let them go through their auto phase, you will not suffer that kind of problem. And then you can harden it up with your bonding light after 90 seconds in the case of this product. Some of them take longer. Activa, for instance, takes a lot longer to set. So if you're using any Activa, you know you can't really manipulate that product. You got to let it set. Then finish it, and then hit it with the light. So this is what happens when you have micro leakage. You can see the blue intrusion from the box form. That means you're going to end up with caries there. So polymer shrinkage will be offset by that occlusal drawdown because there's nothing to prevent it from being pulled into the mass to relieve the stress on the floor and the walls. So this is a good example. It's fully compatible with any kind of bonding agents. You got to be aware that there's 2 good ones out there, Parkel Hyperfill and Coltene Phillip. You can only use their adhesives. Don't try to mix it with someone else's adhesive. And I think that's a failure in their part in not thinking that through, because people don't want to switch adhesives. They're having a good result. Bulk Easy, even in the old version, had really good radiopacity. And this was a favorite for Ray Bertolotti for margin elevation. As soon as we came out with that product, that's what he used. You can see those deep margins on there. So this is a case that was handed to me. This is on the clinic floor, so this is a dental student, not a resident. And you can see there's a little problem there because you've got that tooth is actually eroding into the distal of number 31. So nobody wanted to touch it. So I said, well, let's get that tooth out. It's got an abscess on it anyway. You're very soon going to invade that lower alveolar canal and have a real surprise. So they get the tooth out. Now you got that thing there. That's a problem. So bring on the Bulk Easy. We just got the Bulk Easy and the Parabands. Parabands are the same thing as greater curve, and it's geometry working for you. So if you look at that, what you can see is that when you tighten that down, it's like the Elizabethan collar on a dog. It pulls in tight. You don't need a wedge with it, nor could you get a wedge in some of these areas. So the beauty of that is now, as long as you're using a flowable and you're not wedging that needle against the bottom of that box form, this will fill beautifully, and I'll show you cases where it did, including this one. So this is Practicon Cell. These are called Parabands. Got to keep them around. They work beautifully. So the student did the first cut, and I said, no, 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 we need to go a little deeper than that. So that's his final prep. There's his fill using that Paraband, and then he shaped it. Now, keep in mind, 15-second fill. Students could take easily 5 minutes to fill that cavity and still not get it right because of the shape of the cavity and the location. So he did a very, very nice job. He was very proud. I was proud of him. Could have shaped that a little bit better, but at this point I think it was 5 o'clock, so out the door we go. So Mylar disc, here's another one. This is something that you would have most doctors saying, I'm going to put an amalgam or I'm going to put a GI in there because I can't make anything else work in there. And that used to be the fact. But if you have bulk easy and you can get it clean and you can use something like QuickStat, that's like ultra dense astringent X. QuickStat is a 20% gel form of ferric sulfate. That'll stop a carotid artery. So you want to make sure that wherever you're filling, you don't have any blood or anything going in there. So make sure that you get that under control. This is a great product by Vista Apex for stubborn bleeding. And this is Lieutenant Will Milkovich, 2015. AK Take One we named him because his girlfriend took 5 impressions on a single crown. So I said to Will, I said, so how many impressions are you going to take? He said, I'll take 1. And he got it. A little bit cocky, but he made a good officer in the Navy. That's the first time he used the bulk easy. That is a submariner going out for whatever they do, 6 month, 3 month, I don't know, whatever they do. We didn't have the ability at that time, at least in that Navy base, to mill something out. So he's got to use something quick and dirty and strong. And that's what he did. It was his first bulk easy, not even the plus. So these are just physical values. You can look at those later. There's a copy of this being generated. You can either use it by itself or you can cap it. With the new generation, it's not necessary to cap it. You'll be wasting your time. Bulk easy wear, you can see even with the old bulk easy, we're still talking about the first generation. Look at the wear on that. It's really good. I got a guy up in Reading, Mike Nelson. He and his son now have done probably close to 6,000, because this is an older slide. He had done over 5,000 of the bulk easies, and he is just OCD about photography and checking. It's beautiful because he documents all this stuff. And he said, the worst thing I've had happen with bulk easy, the first generation, I'll have to go back in, blast it with my micro etcher, and then bond to it just to bring it up to snuff again. Gordon Christensen loves what he calls the geezer crown. So the geezer crown is like me, I'm 77. Oh, wait a minute. If you told me that you can give me a crown that'll go 15 years and it'd be about half the fee of a regular crown, I'd do it, because that's what this is up here. But there's another way to do it also. You can do an indirect technique here using Mach 2, direct indirect. So the way I do that, unlike Gordon puts that thing right in the mouth. He takes the preoperative matrix, fills it up with whatever he likes. This one he's talking about bulk easy and also hyperfill, sits it in there like you're making a temporary, and then he's got to get it out of there. This material is not like trying to pull a temporary off. This is a very hard material. It'll probably end up cutting it off. So I just rather do it direct indirect. I take a pre-op impression with a clear VPS material, prep the tooth, take a VPS impression. Everybody makes silicone mold release in the dental business. You spray a little bit of that on there, put the Mach 2 disilicone in there, and then you fill that matrix. In 3 minutes, that the Mach 2 is set hard and accurate. You insert it and let it set. Within 90 seconds, you can take that crown off and start to finish the margins, etc. And then you can hit it with the light, and you can post auto cure light treat it. And then you separate, finish the margins, create a cement space on the intaglio with a burr, micro etch it, and bond it on the tooth. When you bond it, that's when your diametric tensile strength goes way up. So Martin Telich did a really good article on this process. He's a PhD in materials, has a practice in Pennsylvania, I think. And it was about 2 years ago in July, August. I'm still looking for that article because I saved it. He did a beautiful job showing how to do that. So now Nick enters. And Nick is now going to take the agglomerated zirconia and he's going to put it into Bulk Easy Plus, because we're going to go beyond a 0.7 micron barium glass filler. Not that it wasn't a good material, it's just not as good as this. We're going to use all the stuff we liked about the Bulk Easy and we're going to make it Bulk Easy Plus. This is what we want to avoid. There's Bulk Easy, there's gap formation on traditional deep box materials. So some very respected clinicians realized a great material for more than just class 1s and class 2s. There's what that silica, zirconia silica nanoparticle looks like compared to other sizes of things. You can see it's very small, but it's very strong, and it allows you to do things that you can't do with other types of molecules. So for instance, that's going to allow you, it actually acts as a liquid. It allows you to do a lot higher loading of particles, which is your strength. It's also higher gloss, and the scattering you get with the zirconia gives you that nice chameleon effect. So there it is. There's what the big deal is. That's Bulk Easy Plus. That's what you'll use tonight. And if you just look at the lower part of that, it shows all the stuff that the Bulk Easy had in the first place, and then we added in the 80 nanometer spherical zirconia, and it just became a different material. So Jack Farrakane did research on this, and he created what he calls his conversion map. What that tells you, if you look at the color, remember 80%, the bottom layer has to be 80% in hardness of the top layer. He's saying they're at 4.75. It still hasn't changed. You can go down to, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, you can probably do 10 millimeters, let it go auto cure.
You could get a graduated cylinder and you could fill it up all the way.
There you go. So that gives you the ability to do a lot of different things with this product. You couldn't buy Jack Farrakane. He is a very good researcher and high integrity guy. What he's looking at there also is gloss and wear resistance. That's important because that's what's going to allow you to use that as a top layer. And you can see the linear quality of the normalized conversion there. That's a big deal. It's not going down like the others are. Same thing here. This is gloss reduction during toothbrushing. So see, these are all important things, but here's probably the most important thing. This is Ollie Sauter, University of Washington. Great guy. He uses ocular coherence tomography, which is an ophthalmological tool, because he wants to look under a filling. And because it's non-invasive, you can do that. So he's actually scored materials. So you'll see Hyperfill, Bulk Easy Plus. Bulk Easy Plus ZR is Bulk Easy Plus. Hyperfill is Parkel's material, good material, but you got to use their bonding agent. I'm not sure about the surface wear on it. But what he is saying here is that if you look at SureFill 1, that grabbed a big chunk of the market when it came out. And what people didn't realize is that, yeah, you could plunk it all in there. It's going to be an amalgam replacement. And then you light cure the whole mass. This is what happens. This is a SureFill 1 group. And with that the optical coherence tomography, it's a near infrared study, and they can look at the inside of the tooth and they can see that SureFill 1 had 100% separation from the pulpal floor. That's going to be a sensitive filling. There was one very prominent guy running around the country lecturing on it, and then he must have had the same problem that was predicted here with a lot of sensitivity and realized something wasn't working properly. So this is Bulk Easy Plus, allowed to go catalytically auto cure, and you get 100% adaptation. So this product now is a very, very important product in dentistry. Here's a guy with over 5,000 of them in, and I call him the dental dynasty. I knew his father. His father trained me in a Swiss dent denture technique, and then he became a dentist, took his dad's practice, and now his son is in with him. And they're sending me slides that are incredible. Here's Troy Schmedding, Troy was part of the original Bulk Easy, and now he's saying this is a good thing. It's worked much better. She likes to use this for, if you want to check VDO, you're going to do a full mouth reconstruction. It used to be so difficult. Back in the 80s, I mean, the stuff we went through with full mouth reconstruction was horrible. Now, if you want to do a VDO increase and test it, with these materials, you can get a good set of study models, open the vertical to where you know you have to have the vertical to get normal looking teeth in there again, and that's your wax up VDO. And then you replicate that, and you can either put it right in the mouth and do it, just what we call a shrink wrap technique, or you can make it, as I like to do it, on these models, on these Mach 2 models, and then tack bond those on and let them wear them for a month or so. Because if you're invading the freeway space, now's the time you want to do that, before you start prepping teeth. Because up until this point, you haven't prepped any teeth. So it's a great material for that, as well as for the geezer crowns. So what does Wang and all that, those people say about this? More consistent degree of conversion. That's exactly what Solder and Ferricane said. Distinct depth-related polymerization kinetics for Bulk Easy compared to the others. It affects the contraction stress. So these are the kind of things that people are actually measuring for us and giving us this kind of information. Bulk Easy was the only dual cured bulk fill that was not affected by low-level irradiation. The other two in there that we're looking at, the middle layer of the material was affected by the light. It was not as hard as the top layer. So constant degree of conversion as the depth of preparations increase, it's a critical, especially in deep boxes. And the smaller the needle we found, the better you get in terms of eliminating any gapping. I don't know if anybody really understands why that works, but Michael Miller, who started Reality, actually has an algorithm, and he has a way to look at that. And what he found is that if you go from a 19 gauge needle to a 20 gauge needle with Bulk Easy Plus or any of the other materials, you don't get the same percentage of microgapping. It significantly decreases. So what about operator experience, etc.? This is a study to see how well people could actually put in a 2 millimeter increment. And what they found is that they're either too thick, too thin, didn't seem to be related to the experience, the operator experience level. But what they did find is that the chance, regardless of the experience level, an operator is just as likely to place an increment of resin bonded composite that's within the desirable range than he or she is to over or underfill it. So what that tells you is that you got a bunch of different stuff going on here. In general, regardless of the increment number, only about a third of the increments fell within that 1.75 to 2.25. Why is that important? Because that bottom layer especially is critical. You're better to be on the shy side rather than having a very thick layer, and especially if it's a darker material. So we're still trying to standardize that incremental technique. And I think GV Black is saying just inject it and be done with it. This is the thing you're going to work with tonight. It was invented by Richard Price. Ultradent manufactures it for him. What you're looking at there on that left, is that filled the box form just fine? That one didn't, because they were waving the light around. GI, no surprise. GI sets, auto cure, doesn't pull away, goes down into the box form, it's fine. Now, if you take acetone and you put it on that one, the uncured resin, that will just wash right out of there. So that's the box form. That's the deep box form that we're so concerned about. So these are knit lines. The knit lines are the little areas where you've packed increments in. So if you take these same participants that created those, and they're more careful, then they got to that level over there because they were being more careful. They also put a little drop of flowable in there to break the surface tension. And the other noteworthy thing is that A4B is much different than A1B. When you get down to that box form, what you're looking at there below the A4B is a complete void in the bottom of both boxes. You won't see that with the A1B so much because it carries the light better. So here's your knit lines. Tonight you're not going to be able to put any methylene blue or any stain on there to see those. But what I want you to see tonight when we fill it is that you can get a really good fill like the one on the right with your injectable material. And then you'll see it also in the Typodont, how well it fills the Typodont. Nick's going to help me with that because he's done a million of these clinics. And hopefully you're going to see what we've been seeing over the years now since this project started. If you look at that poorly cured one, if you wash that with acetone, it just comes out. It's not cured. The cured material stays there because it's cured. Same thing with that one over there on the right. And here's Michael Miller. I'm just going to go quickly through this because I want you to see what happens when he went from a 17 gauge needle to a 19 gauge. And we can now get this out of 20 gauge. I actually like the 20 gauge even better. The bottom line is that the micro gapping went way, way down significantly. So here's the needles that you're looking at. That's the 17, 19, and 20. What would I use a 17 for? Maybe a big, wide open dish type buildup that you're doing. I would not use it on like an MOD. I just don't have the faith in that. But 19 I would, and 20 for minimally invasive fissurotomies and box preps, class 5s, it works beautifully. So now, what about the accoutrements to make those margins in contact? This is Clinician's Choice. If you haven't done business with them, very interesting company, started in Canada. They've now moved into the US. They got a lot of the top KOLs are working with them. This is exactly the same setup as BioClear. So if you buy this, you're buying a BioClear setup. The difference is in the matrices. They don't make a clear matrix. They make this matrix, which is out of the metal matrix, is the best one. The bottom line on this is that you have every size you want. This wedge, you'll see the wedge in there, how well it fits. It just works. And more importantly, that dual force ring does not fatigue. And when you get that wedge, when you pre-wedge that tooth, before you prep it, and you put that ring on, you're going to get about 8 pounds of separating force. That's the maximum you can get, about 27 newtons. If we got time, we'll show this tonight, but what we're doing here is we're taking an old instrument called Contact Pro, and we're pulling that band. This is all etched and ready to go, so it's ready to be filled, and then I tack weld that thing while I'm pulling it, and the assistant hits it with some light. Why would I do that? Because that band now is pulled up against there and it's buccolingually expanded. So there's not a chance I'm going to get a poor contact here. I got the ring on there, I got everything going for me. So we just hit it 10 seconds. I can still use that same needle, same syringe. Once I get it done, I just pull that out. BioClear also makes an instrument like this, is called push-pull. Quite frankly, you can buy the blue one from, that's the newest one from Chuck Sloan's company, CEJ, and it will work as well, and it's a lot less expensive. So it takes the dentist to push and pull it, and then apply the composite, and the assistant light cures it, and then you just move on, and you continue to fill, because that's not going to go anywhere. And then just brush that material lightly. Make it about 10% overfill, okay? Then we know you got enough for that pull down. And just use a brush. Don't try to do anything with an instrument poking into it. Let that go for 90 seconds. I know it's hard to do that. You want to work with it. You want to soft sculpt it. You don't have to, because you have in that brochure, in this brochure are 2 of these burrs. Take them back and try it. They're no different than sculpting alloy with a 21B acorn. That's how we came up with that. And the angle is patented. So it just forms the cuspal angles that you want. The transverse ridges, the triangular ridges, all that stuff. So you'll get a very robust contact with this technique. It's easy to do. And then I just cut those little lugs off when I'm finishing it. So these are students, and the kit up there on the end with the blue lid are the teeth that they created. They had never done any injected fill. They had no clue what it was like. We used a 20 gauge needle, and they had never sculpted anything in the hard status. So they were all used to very small fillings in the sim lab, and then, you know, forming their contact or their anatomy while it's setting or while it's not setting, soft sculpt. So after 90 seconds, they started carving planes using the acorn and Christmas tree, the ones that you have in there. And then, after they got done with that, then we told them, when you've got all your anatomy where you want it, then hit it with the light, and that will bring it to the highest level of conversion that you can get it to. And then polish it. And what we had them do is we reshaped brownies and greenies, and we used them at about 50 to 100,000. When I say reshape, I just run them like a pencil sharpener against a diamond, because I don't want something convex. Convex will create a concave surface. So for me, it doesn't work. So I just reshape them quickly. It doesn't take much time. And then we use the, after we use the brownie and the green with a lot of water, then we use the DVA top dots, and you have a sample of that also in your bag. That's a great polish. And if you've ever done anything with rouge or whiting compound, you know, you run the bristles into it until it turns the bristles blue, and then you go right at it, and you'll get enough material to do several teeth just with one fell swoop. So top dots will give you the shine that you want. This is what they got. They just got this diagram, and they just took off with it and carved. They place their starting pits in the 10% overfill, and then they go halfway from pit to pit. So it's kind of like a child's dot-to-dot drawing. And this is what they created. Not one of these had open margins. Keep in mind, these are dental students of varying levels of ability. And not one of them created open box forms. Not one out of the 60. And this is the kind of anatomy they created. I mean, that's not too bad for a novice, right? And they hard sculpted that. Very natural anatomy. When Jack Farrakhan, I showed him these teeth, he said, you know, that kind of, it kind of standardized hand skills. And I said, well, there was an interesting story with this. One of my least talented students, who just was always struggling, and a nice guy, came up and handed me the tooth. And I looked at it, and I looked at him, and I said, this is really great. And he had tears in his eyes. I mean, come on. We got to give people the things that they can work with that make them proud. Never seen that kid do that before. He was always kind of a hangdog guy. So here you are. This is a resident. He's had some carious lesions. We're gonna prep them first with a 334, about 5,000 RPMs. Then we're gonna hit it with that Groman Etch Master. That's a great etcher. Aluminum oxide. We're gonna get a pre-etch, and we're also gonna clean the biofilm off. You can use potassium bicarbonate for biofilm in the same type of device. They're preloaded. And that's analogous really to BioClear. Their blasters, aluminum trihydroxide. It's a soft particle. It's meant just to take off the biofilm. So now he's painting with a 20 gauge needle. He's not using any instruments. That's the only instrument he's using. He's painting his class 5. And keep in mind, he's got 90 seconds to paint that. And then it starts to get gelled. Then he'll take a brush, and he'll just clean it up a little bit without pulling at anything. Just get it off of the gum. And then he takes those pre-shaped brownie and greenies, and he runs them at about 20,000, or about 50,000 actually, with water and the BN handpiece. If you have an air drive, you got to pulse the pedal because, as you well know, those things have a tendency to fly apart if you go up too high. That's what I love about the electric handpieces. We got maximum torque with the BN down to 200. So the bottom line is that you can do this very quickly, and then you can hit it with this material. That's the top dots. Pure diamond compound. Doesn't fly all over the place. It stays right where you put it on the brush until it hits that surface, and then it gives you that high shine, and then follow it with a buff. Pretty simple. And you get that nice high shine that does not attract plaque. So I'm going to go fast through these because we got a whole bunch of these to go through, and I want to get to the hands-on. These are all residents, and what we're doing here is we're pre-wedging, and we're prepping that. We got a pretty severe crack, so we're going to deal with that. We're going to bevel those cusps so that we get a real nice compressive dome on there. And again, we're going to follow the BioClear predicate. He's filling it now, and one thing I can always count on is that they will overfill. So then he brushes it, allows it set for 90 seconds. That's that universal ring, by the way. This is the nicest ring. They just came out with that at BioClear. That will actually clamp between a cuspid and a bicuspid. And I don't know of any other one that will. They all fly off. So now he's starting his pilot pits in there, and he gets the very basic anatomy, and then he's got to smooth it with the Christmas trees, polish it, and you get pretty nice anatomy for a big filling like that. And again, we're talking about residents. They're first year out of school. This is a miserable GI case, three attempts to do a lateral type of approach, and all three of them failed. So I looked at it and I said, why don't we just cut out that occlusal composite and combine it with a box form? Doesn't that make more sense? It's not like this is a beautiful restoration, and it's not virgin tooth. So we're going to have to get access. We're going to do some tissue removal. In this case, we just did a gingitage with a coarse diamond on an air handpiece works best. Could have used the laser, except our laser was kaput. And electrosurge, we don't have electrosurge anymore in the clinic, but I loved electrosurge as long as I stayed away from metal. So now we've created what we need there, got the tissue off of that margin, and then we're going to hit it with that the quickstat gel or the liquid, either one. They both work well. And then we blast it. Now this time we're using bicarbonate. The reason we're using potassium bicarbonate is because you have access on a lower tooth like that to fascial planes. You don't want to get any air emphysema here. So don't stick that thing way down there. Just blast it through the best you can. And then 3M etchant, 3M, hit it with the light. Respect that inverse law. Now to fill it, you got to take it off. So when you fill this, you're going to have to go fast. You're not going to have time to incrementally pack. You won't even have time to do a bulk fill. But what we do have time to do is we can use the Bulk Easy Plus and get that beautifully filled. Put that Elizabethan collar paraband on there, and we've got everything cleaned up. Now what we need to do is refresh the bond, light cure it, keep everything dry. We've got dry angles on both sides, and we've got that Sweflex Svedopter from Practicon under the tongue. We got a good feel to work with, and then we just quickly fill it before we have the flood of 1942 in there. 10% overfill. Now, it's not advised with these bands to push something against that base because it's not wedged and flowable will not go beyond it. But if you pack anything into that, it's just not a good idea. So what he's got to do now is remove the gross excess, make his pilot pits, and then start forming the cuspal angles, and then finish it. Notice that he's got that diamond-free zone. He can rest that on the tooth if he needs to. That's the 80-20 version. We also make a 50-50 version that's got only 50% diamond on it for smaller fillings. And then the brownies and the greenies, lots of water. It goes very quickly. Hit it with that top dots, and then that's what you get. I mean, that's pretty darn nice for that nightmare. And it's anatomical. So there's the original where they tried 3 times to do a lateral type of approach to it. And there's it is with restored with the Bulk Easy Plus. So deep box, you can get down to that level. These are all the types of situations our residents face, because these people, most of them are on Medi-Cal. We don't have the option of doing a crown. We got to give them something that's going to hold up. So again, here we are. Same thing. There's that BioClear wedge. I love that BioClear. And the clinician's choice, dual force, whatever you want. You can buy it in either source. They work beautifully. This is going to be one of those raffle gifts tonight. It's Contact Easy. It's developed by Dan Kim, prosthodontist up in Vancouver, Washington. And now it's owned by Direct to AB. It's a great set. The original one, the black one, was used just to seat crowns, any ceramic crown, so that you don't over adjust them. It works beautifully. You wouldn't think that it would when you look at it and how you do it, but it does. Just trust me on that. The black one is for setting a crown. So here you are. We got half the time. This is their typical case. This patient came in looking like that. What are we going to do? We got to fix it up somehow. So I'm a firm believer, as is Christensen, that we're going to need a belt and suspenders here, because that dent and bond is strong today, but it may not be strong in the future. I'm going to screw in a couple of fill pins. This is a different generation of pins. This is not the old brass one that cracked the dent. So now we have the best of both worlds. We just put that matrix around it and we fill it quickly. And now, because it was so fast, we can fix those other 2. And that's the way they left. Sorry about this picture, but I left and she took that last picture with her iPhone. So now, regen. You want to get rid of GI and have something that will do an exchange of ions, a true bioglass. This is your material. It works. This is like a 5th generation. Instead of using phosphoric acid, it uses 5% nitric acid. And you would think, oh, that doesn't sound very good. Well, it works beautifully. And if you look at the MDP literature, you know that you can bond to MDP very well with zirconia. So here's how it works. You can either have the 3 bottle if you like the 4th generation, or the 5th generation. And where they put the bioglass is in the primer. So when you etch and then you prime it, the primer is loaded with bioglass. And then when you put the adhesive on it and you blow it, it pushes the bioglass into the dentin. It's about the only sensible way to get there until Nick comes up with something better. The bottom line is that this is not going to break down. If you used Activa, you know that you have to use a bonding agent with it. I couldn't find anybody to say that that Activa ions will go through that bonding agent. It just flies in the face of what bonding agents are. But this, you're putting it in the bonding agent. And this is what they're talking about. We want the materials to go into the dentin, that fresh cut dentin, and stop it from weeping, and also stop, maybe the this is a solution to the MMP and the cathepsin breakdown of our bonds. So I say, what do we have to lose with this? So get rid of and you can see the difference here in the calcium and also the phosphate release compared to the pulp dent product. So this is a good one. This is a good step in the right direction. Fluoride release is much higher. So watch for the reports. You have these little bands there. You'll find a reason to use those, guaranteed. I put those on because we don't have any room for Toffelmeyers or anything like that. So this will allow you to fill the cavities. You will find a reason to use those bands. And yes?
I found that when you gave us some and I tried them in the mouth, that they were too small for molars. I couldn't get it on the molars, back molars.
Maybe I gave you the bicuspid.
No, it was like this one.
Did it say molar?
I don't know what it said.
Turn it counterclockwise and see if it gets bigger. I hope I didn't give you the bicuspids.
Yeah. Anyways, I just thought, yeah.
No, that's good feedback. That might be what happened. I mean, just grab the box of the bicuspids. But usually, if you want to get those on, if you open it, you can stretch it out a little more.
Okay.
Just be careful because it's got a pre-contour on it.
Uh-huh.
So in terms of lights, the Velo light is what we use at school. You can't destroy it. This is a new kid on the block. Love the large head on there, and I like the fact that they've got actually 4 wavelengths now. So there's some hope that this is going to cure some of the problems that we have with under-curing composites. The claims made are what we all want. If you have any more questions, you should talk to either Mike Miyazaki or Scott Lamoran at Apex. And these are the awards that it got. Now, here's an important thing in this talk. Don't buy a budget light. We did that at Danville, and I did not want to service those lights because I knew they were going to be a problem. And they were. And we had them flying back because something would break or all of a sudden they didn't work anymore. They're junk. I'll guarantee you, spend the money on a good light. Velo Pink Wave, 3M makes a pretty good one, Elipar I think it's called. But this Richard Price is really a world authority, as well as Fred Rugeberg on lights. They all say the same thing. Just don't buy a budget light. They're just too inconsistent. If they look blue, that doesn't mean they're going to cure deep. And then battery levels, you really have to watch battery levels, because if that's fluctuating, you might not notice it because you've got it over the tooth. So a good unit will not have that problem with the battery being low. The cheap ones, you'll never know. So here's what we're talking about with that ANSI, the ANSI ADA 4049. This is the micro indenter. And what they're looking here is to see that at the 4 millimeter depth, it's as impenetrable as it is on the top, or close to it, within 80%. That's what makes these materials good. If they don't have, I'll guarantee you with Bulk Easy Plus, you're not going to have a problem to 10 millimeters. And that's the nice thing about using some of these newer bulk fill flowables. So you can also do the scrape test. That 4049 was actually based on a scrape test, where you would just scrape it off until you got to the point where it didn't scrape anymore, and then you measured that. Well, again, if it didn't go to 80% of the top layer at what they predicate, it's not working. So here's my MacGyver test. I just take, these are irrigation tubing, put it on a little brass thing, cut off a 4 or 5 millimeter piece, fill it up, and then I put the light on the top, hold the bottom tight against something preferably black, but it doesn't photograph well, and then you push it out and take a look at what you have there. So if they say 1200 milliwatts for 10 seconds for a 4 millimeter depth of cure, you'll see if that works. Because you take a sharp barred Parker and you push it on the top layer, that better be at least 80% of that hardness. It should not stick in. So it's just a what I call the poor people's ANSI 4049 measurement device. Works pretty well. We did a surface study here. I'm going to go quickly through this and just tell you what the result was. We found that the most polished surface was seen with Rockstar. Rockstar is the best polishing media. It's complicated. It works well. I can tell you that, it was significantly better than the minnows. Minnows are what we had in the clinic. They're horrible. They don't give you a high gloss at all. Couldn't use them with water. So what we saw was Rockstar, followed by ASAP. And ASAP is the clinician's choice version of the little wheelies and the points. Work very well. And then brownie and greenie and also the top dots were about 1.6. But the minnow was low. And I would not recommend doing that. If you really want to get, if you're going to do BioClear, you're going to want to have that rock star finish. So this is how we got around to doing this hard sculpting. This is the Linux carving manual. I'm sure some of you used that when you were in school, maybe? No? Okay, well this is how we learned how to carve from a solid block into a tooth, period. I'm not particularly artistic, but by doing this, I could do that. But I like to use this as a demonstration of why I wouldn't want to use anything with convex or ball shape or pointed. That was Ray Bertolotti's, I called it the witch's hat. And from this type of research, we came up with that angle up there. That's the original raptor burr. And what we realized is that that angle was common. So it's about 97 degrees. We received a patent on that. And you can see it fits all the different posterior teeth. So then what we needed to do beyond that was be able to put limit stops and safe edges and safe zones on all the drills. Because the Raptor wouldn't do that. You could just keep on grinding with it. It would keep on going. We did not have a way at that time to do what these people did. And that instrument is compliments of me. Please take it home and enjoy it. It's a fun instrument because it just combines everything in one. So the bottom line, this is for paste. You got an instrument to push it, shove it, pre-sculpt it, and then you can follow it with the diamonds. I sent a set of the Raptors to this Bob White in Texas. He's an incredible guy. And I didn't tell him anything about it. I said, write the protocol for me. What would you do with these? So that's what he did. Put those 3 dots in there, central, marginal pit, and then he started what he calls his dot. He's the one that said dot to dot drawing. He never goes all the way through, nor did my students. So you're always going bidirectionally, otherwise you just cut a big ditch in there. You don't want to do that. If you do this, you'll carve automatically with a limit stop your angulations that you need for triangular ridges, for transverse ridges. Doesn't make any difference what tooth it is. And that's what he did. And what he's showing here is that, hey, wait a minute, this is just like that 21B I used for alloys. So, bottom line is that's what he created and sent to me. These slides are now, God, from the early 90s. Great guy to work with. We got Pearl's column from Dental Economics and Ian Schumann. I'm going to go fast here. Here's a BioClear guy I sent the burrs to. He's going to turn that tooth into what appears to be a crown. That's what he did with it. That's pure BioClear. So the reason I like these burrs, not because I invented them, but because I would have used this thing if I saw it. It just makes sense to me. I got a limit stop. I've got bumpers, so if I hit the enamel, I want to go fast. I don't want to be diddling around with this stuff. And then you got this instrument which matches it, the patented 97 degree. Okay, fast. You can look at the instrument. I hope you enjoy it. So this is what we talk. We call this prescriptive because we know which size we're going to use based on the size of the cavity. So for pedos, for fissurotomies, that small one works beautifully. The medium acorn for your first time restoration, small isthmus. And then you got the big ones, and especially like BioClear, where you really need to stop at that 10%. And then the indications here are we have a 50-50 and an 80-20. This is 15 microns, so this polishes as well as removes composite. So the 50-50 we're going to use on class 1, 2, and 5 restorations. And the 80-20 to finish the larger ones. So this is how it works. It's prescriptive. Just figure out which one you want, pick it up, and go over it. And here's the child's dot-to-dot drawing, and then you pair it with the appropriate size diamond zone, and you're pretty much done. When you get done with this, the prosthodontist that replaced me in my old practice said, I don't even bother polishing them anymore because with water, this 15 micron creates a gloss finish. But I beg to differ. I think that Top Dots really tops it off nicely. Okay, so occlusionator. All right. So we got CR clinical trials, got a good write-up on that. One guy said, oh yeah, Raptors with trainer wheels. That's very true. We put stops on there. We put edges that protect you from dinging anything. Because we all know we can ding stuff with something that's going 200,000 RPMs and a lot of torque. And then we came out with this. And that's also going to be in the raffle tonight. This is for zirconia. Because if you talk to people like Christensen, he just calls zirconia, he said it's the Hindenburg coming over the hill. Because people are putting so much zirconia on and it's mixed up with natural teeth. And guess what? The natural teeth wear, the zirconia doesn't. And now it's high. And how are you going to adjust it? You can't take it out of the mouth to do it. So that's why we did these, and it's worked beautifully. The only thing we don't use, other than for linguals of upper and lower anterior teeth, is that football. We don't touch a posterior occlusion with anything convex. Everything is done with the planar form. Once we can resculpt, I'll show you teeth that we flattened and then resculpted. It works nice. I think you'll like it. So here it is. You know, another write-up, another just hard to get products out there. So there's proof of concept. We flattened those and then recarved them. There's more. Flatten, recarve. Flatten, recarve. There's your Top Dots. Remember, you're going to see one called WOW in there. WOW is what you use on those bristle brushes on zirconia. Don't put that on composite, just Top Dots. That will give you the best finish on zirconia you've ever seen. I had 12 faculty members and we had a big long span bridge. It was all glaze finished. So I blasted the hell out of one half of it with a micro etcher, and then I hit it with the WOW. And it came back looking better and feeling better than the glaze finish. Because remember, the glaze finish goes away. And then what do you have underneath it? It better be polished, because that's where the carborundum effect comes in. So these are nice because you can maneuver these. You can get around anything, anywhere in the mouth, posteriorly, anteriorly, and they're autoclavable. Also, Dental Ventures of America. That's a company you never heard of. They did lab for years and then decided, hey, some of our products should work well for dentists at the chair side. This is a great little brush. It's from Ultradent, and I forget what it's called. Something, well, you'll see it on the form. At any rate, you can buy that at Ultradent. It works well. When you can't get into an area with those other ones, that'll do it. And there's the Buff. Autoclavable, Dental Ventures of America, Safe Edge. Now you can see how that works. It's not going to go too deep. And then you can finish the sculpting with these burrs, always using copious water. And I'm done. So you build houses in my woods, I swim in your tiny lake. You ready to spill some teeth? Okay, let's go. Come on, Nick. All right.